about my story, it really starts in Bangladesh. So my childhood memories actually are of war, recovery from war, and also sort of the continuation of what I like to say the societal war with unequal power of dynamics. So just a little background and a little history lesson, I guess, for everyone. In 1971, Bangladesh became independent from Pakistan. Or before that, we were all colonies of Great Britain. And in 71 war, pretty much in 9 months, 3 million people were killed. A lot of my family was killed. And the country really was devastated. And interestingly, everything was really built from scratch. And the country was continuously told, what to do and how the country should be built by other donor countries and really the multilaterals. Again, not really very different from a lot of the other countries that who have faced this. Now, interestingly, I always say the country's sort of predicament was really, in a strange way, the juxtaposition, of the women in my society as well. Who frankly bore kind of the brunt of the economic struggles, the religious and the societal discriminations. So, and as for me, I was the fourth girl in a very conservative Muslim family and a society. So where girls are not very welcome, they still aren't, unfortunately. And my mother just had to bear a lot of insult, a lot of brunt, of the humiliation for having 4 girls and me being the fourth. So I guess that sort of stayed in me, and that really made me a very defiant child, and I always sort of questioned the system. So I think when I think back now in terms of how that, on the flip side of of how that sort of manifested itself, it was interesting. While we had very little growing up, one thing that we did grow up with was always sort of sharing what we had. So interestingly, I remember. And again, for a lot of our audience, maybe some of you know what I'm talking about. We had these things called the ration cards, from the government. So we would get a certain amount of rice, a certain amount of oil. And every Friday, which is sort of the religious holiday for us Muslims, we would actually, give away more than half of it, to the people who would come to the gate and would share it. And this was something not seen as, we have to do this, but it was almost like, of course we would do it. I mean, we have something and we have to share with people who don't have. And this was something I would say that was really instilled in all of us siblings by my mother and my grandmother. And really sort of the message was, what you have, you share. And also what you get in return is the blessings. And I think that really stayed with me. And I think, so in some ways, I think now I know that was philanthropy. There was no word for it. It was just, the word was just sharing. And it was really nice that was really a part of my life, and that manifested in different ways. But I think sort of also related to that, interestingly, which is sort of how kind of my, exposure to what later on I found out was entrepreneurship. It's very interesting. I think that was sort of my first taste of being a girl, a woman, and also found out how business and women don't mix. So the story goes, I actually used to collect stamps, and I was quite creative about it. I didn't really know English very well, but I found out some addresses through my teachers of some random kids in Europe, and I would write to them in a very bad English, so that I could get the stamps. And then from there, I started this stamp collection and business. And it grew. And then I still remember I had my first payment issue, an accounts receivable issue. I didn't know any of these terms, of course. I was like 8 years old or 9 years old. And I remember my mom found out, and she got very angry. And she said, the girls are not supposed to do business. And she took away my stamp collection and gave it to a male cousin. And that was sort of the end of it. So it's funny because when I think back now, it really was, once again, I think probably some of the seeds of defiance was seeded, there, saying, damn it, why can't I do this? Why can't I have this trading business I have? And I didn't know it was business. So I think, it's interesting how all of these little pieces sort of come together. But I think the bottom line is, I think for me, I realized that finance, it can be the cause of great wealth, and it can also be cause of great inequality. And I think for me, that really became a burning desire to make it do good. And one source of this financial sort of inequality really is women not being part of it. You know, there's a $300 billion financing gap for women that we still today. And frankly, that's, if you think of it as an economy, you know, that's bigger than China and India put together, and it's twice the size of that. So it really is very, very interesting how your personal journey sort of brings you to something that, frankly, you know, is probably not that unusual, because most of the women in this world is in kind of in the same, you know, boat that I'm in or that I grew up in.